Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks everyone for joining the second in the MTE Partnership webinar series on the Transformations Working Group, particularly focusing on knowledge generation and management. So just for the sake of keeping things orderly, we will mute all participants. You're welcome to communicate through the chat if you wish, or if there aren't too many people, you can just unmute and give a shout out. But for technical problems, select host. If it's something you want everyone to see, send it to everyone. So, the goals for this session are, we'll begin just with a very brief 2-minute overview of the MTE partnership, just in case you are not aware of what that is. You can also see a longer overview in the first of the webinar series, which is actually posted on Open Canvas. We'll also talk a little bit more about the Transformations Working Group, including its aim, drivers, and what its Can you hear me? Can anyone hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I just got this weird message on my screen saying weird things about my speakers. Okay. So the goals, again, to learn more about the Transformations Working Group. The third is to hear about how you can become involved in the work of the Transformations Working Group. And then finally, to explore connections between the work of the Transformations Working Group and other MTE partnership activities. So the MTE partnership was organized by the Association of Public and Land-Grant Universities to address the basic problem of not having enough teachers, new teachers who are well prepared to teach mathematics at the secondary level. The MTE partnership contains 40 partnership teams. One of the key issues here is that this is supposed to be a partnership, including involvement of math educators, as well as mathematicians and K-12 educators working collaboratively to address secondary mathematics teacher preparation. The MTE partnership is a networked improvement community, or NIC. The seminal reference, if you're interested in learning more about NICs, is the Learning to Improve book that's shown on the screen. While the focus of the book is on K-12, there are also some higher ed examples, and we've really adapted the design to meet our needs. The 4 key factors or features are, first of all, the whole network is focused on a common aim. In our case, increasing the number and quality of math teacher candidates. We don't take on anything other than that. Elementary is someone else's work. In-service is someone else's work. We have a very specific focus. Secondly, guided by a deep problem analysis. Early on in the partnership, we developed what are called guiding principles for secondary mathematics teacher preparation, which really framed all of the work of the MTE partnership as the AMTE we have also incorporated attention to the AMTE standard. Can you hear me?
Only briefly.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know. I keep getting strange messages from Zoom that my microphone can't be heard and crazy stuff like that.
Yeah, sometimes I look and you're suddenly muted. So when I see that, I've been unmuting you, but I don't know how you're getting muted.
I'm not doing anything, I promise. So, well, I'll soon be done, and then people you can hear will be talking. So, this is crazy. So, yeah, so I was saying the guiding principles were developed by the MTE partnership, and then we added on the attention to the AMTE standards when they were released in 2017. A network improvement community is really focused on continuous improvement using data. A lot of the efforts involve the use of plan, do, study, act cycles, if you're familiar with those. But the key issue here is having evidence to support the changes you're making. The Carnegie folks like to say, not every change is an improvement. Do we really know if it's making a difference? And the final factor is the networked design, so that we're working across multiple contexts on the same problem so that we can learn more from and with each other. So this is the overall driver diagram, which is our depiction of the work of the MTE partnership. You can see on the left side, we have the aim, which is creating a gold standard, a standard of quality, and then also producing more and better new teachers. The primary drivers are the areas that we think we need to attend to if we want to make progress on our aims. The four initial primary drivers, creating a vision, improving clinical preparation, increasing content knowledge, and improving recruitment and retention, really grew out of a long process of and making of needs assessment. Okay, I got the weird messages again. My apologies for that. You can see we added 2 additional drivers, one on transforming programs and one on promoting equity and social justice. These are kind of cross-cutting issues that go across all of the other primary drivers. Again, by making progress in these areas, our hypothesis is it will help us to make progress towards our aim. The networking comes in the 3rd column. We've created research action clusters and working groups to address various of these primary drivers. The middle 5 are RACs, or research action clusters, that are working on particular problems of practice. These typically involve multiple institutions, as many as 10 or 20, working collaboratively. The Transformations Working Group and Equity and Social Justice Working Group are more formative. They're earlier in development, but they also address these same primary drivers. And in this presentation, we're really focusing on the Transformations Working Group. I think with that, my section ends, and hopefully you'll have someone that you can hear.
So the MTE partnership has an annual conference, as most of you know, and the 8th annual conference is this summer. It'll be June 23rd. Oh, we didn't fix the slide. 23rd to 25th, not the 35th, 2019, in St. Louis. This conference it's a working conference, and so it's intended for people who are actively involved in the MTE partnership or who want to be involved. And if you are not yet involved, but you're interested in becoming involved, let us know, and we can work with you and talk about forming a partnership. All right, Gary, you need to advance the slide. There we go. So what is the problem for program transformation? Because we've been working with with the work of RACs, we've been changing individual program components. A group is working on the mathematics courses or on the clinical preparation or on the recruitment. But it's not necessarily clear that changing the individual components will lead to overall program transformation and our aim of more and more well-prepared secondary mathematics teachers. And within the challenge of program transformation, we have to really think about institutional change. There's research out there that suggests what are the barriers to changing culture, changing institutions and systems. And one of the big barriers with a NIC is thinking about the knowledge generation and management system. With each of the RACs working independently, they're generating a lot of knowledge, and so then it's a question of how to get that knowledge widely known across the partnership. And it's not enough just to have kind of a repository or a library where people can just check out files, because if knowledge about how to change systems was just a matter of reading the right materials, we'd be farther along. But education is one of those wicked problems, to quote some of the literature. And so it needs a big systems approach, and we need a dynamic way to share files and continue to build knowledge, not just share files, but share the knowledge generation and be able to continue to build that dynamically as the knowledge gets applied to different contexts. So we proposed a grant, partly because the other funding for MTE partnership was ending. And so we got a grant for the National Science Foundation that we call NIC Transform, about program transformation. And it's a multi-level networked improvement community. So we have the MTE partnership as a networked improvement community. And then we have what we told NSF, these topical networked improvement communities. So these are all the RACs. And then we have program networked improvement communities. And so that's where each local partnership team has its own university and school partnership that's working to transform the local program. There's the leadership of the NIC Transform that have their own kind of NIC operation, that kind of this NIC of NICs. And so collectively, we're trying to function as a larger NIC to address our overall aim and have the knowledge generation and management system to coordinate all of the work of the smaller groups. So the specific aim and driver diagram of the transformation working group, I'm not going to go over all of this, but our primary drivers are really about the program transformation. So we need to have collaborative partnerships among stakeholders with a common vision and values, commitment to equity as a central focus of the transformation efforts. Policies need to be aligned to the common vision, values, beliefs, and knowledge. There needs to be a commitment to a continuous improvement stance. Transformation isn't something where you're done and you got there. And that collaboration across a networked improvement community is the approach that we are taking.
So when we conceived of this project idea, of course, we had some research questions that we were specifically interested in answering around program transformation, and you can see those there. And in particular, we were really interested in this knowledge generation management system, or the KGMS, how we could implement it within the sites, within the universities, within the partnership, and then also across the sites, especially within the research action clusters and the working groups. The whole goal was to enhance the generation of knowledge, the generation of new knowledge, and the application of that knowledge, in being able to historically record it and provide an environment where we could discuss and have rich conversations that could be archived with the materials. And in some of the work prior to the grant being submitted and NIC Transform being formed, we identified some very specific things with the work of the planning group and then within the work of the research action clusters about what we really needed to have within a knowledge generation management system. So we really wanted to have that multiple levels of access from developers, from users to view only. We recognize that everybody plays a different role in the partnership, and it looks differently across the different partnerships, the different research action clusters, and then the different working groups. We wanted it to have the ability to support editing documents, annotating, tagging, embedding, audio, video, etc. And then we wanted to have accessibility in terms of file location and management, and that was probably one of the biggest things. A lot of the research action clusters had already done a lot of work in terms of knowledge generation, and they had folder structures and file structures that were already in place, and we didn't want to try to reinvent the wheel. So finding something that would support already existing structures for that. And then also something that could have different view options, from a quick look to some editing, commenting, downloading. So what we've been doing this past year in our year one is we've done PDSA cycles around the works of each of the sites that are involved in NIC Transform. And we decided to pilot what we would call open canvas. So there's what we call two different canvases. There's an institutional canvas, which has a contract partnership with Canvas, and you have your own institutional URL, etc. And there's connections to your student management system, grades, etc. And then there's Open Canvas, which is open source, which is what Canvas was built upon. And anybody can join Canvas, and anybody can create a course. So we thought that Open Canvas would be a good thing to try because it met most of our characteristics, especially in terms of Google Drive, which a majority of our research action clusters were already using. And then again, meeting a lot of our specifications. The drawback, of course, is that it is built upon a course management structure. And so it's not really built to sustain a group, but rather a course. And then there are different roles within the course. And so it can be difficult to define those roles and to decide who has access to what. If we want to create a group within a group, that's a little bit limited in terms of what that looks like. And then just trying to get everybody onboarded and providing access has had different challenges. But there's been lots of opportunities for engagement. And so the MTEP partnership overall and other research action clusters are using Open Canvas in different ways. And so we've been collecting information and feedback on how that's working for the various groups. And we really would like to get all of our research action clusters onto Open Canvas and sharing across our platforms and inviting each other into our different courses, again, using those different roles. If you're not a full member of the research action cluster, an appropriate role would be student, for example, where you view the materials and you can download them and provide comments and feedback, but you're not an editing member of the group. We would like local partnership teams to be on Open Canvas, or at least be trying some other knowledge generation management system. And thinking about, what kind of knowledge are you generating, and how can you share it, and how would you want to share it? And then, really thinking about that dynamic piece. We didn't want to have a static platform. We really wanted the ability to have rich discussions, to share materials, and again, to have features where we can archive, highlight, embed, etc. And then in thinking about whoever and whatever group you're doing Open Canvas with, or your other KGMS, thinking about what roles and responsibilities there are within your team. And at this point, we know we've thrown a lot of information at everyone, and so we wanted to ask them, or have the opportunity for questions to be asked. And you can ask questions through the chat feature, or you can raise your hand on Zoom, or you can just unmute and ask your question. Okay, I feel like I've done appropriate wait time for online learning. So Gary, let's go to the next slide. So what does that work look like moving forward? And some of the things that we're looking at in particular with that, third research question for the project is, in terms of knowledge generation management, how do we best propagate knowledge generated by the partnership, whether it's through the partnership as a whole, through the sites, or through the research action clusters? How do we encourage engagement within the KGMS, just beyond hey, here's a repository, I'm going to stick my item here and then move on. Like, how can we think about getting feedback and really having these discussions to help encourage each other, inspire each other, and move our programs forward? And then again, thinking about Open Canvas or whatever knowledge generation management system we come up with, how can we use that to serve as a dynamic KGMS? We really don't have that at an NSF level and an institutional level, and how can we do that?
One thing that I would add to all of this is, I mean, these questions I think obviously are not going to be answered quickly, but we really want to start the conversation. We've actually started a student group on Open Canvas for people who want to engage in these discussions. And so we've asked each RAC and working group to make sure that they have at least one representative. Can you hear me again? To one representative on that group. But we welcome anyone who's interested in having these discussions to be a part of the conversation. I think really as we try things and see what works, what doesn't work, we can all learn from that. So I would just encourage people to join that. If you can't figure out how, shoot me an email and I'll add you to that student group. That's on the main MTEP course in Open Canvas.
A question in the chat, John put a question, what's our strategy for answering the key questions that we shared? And I think the answer is that we're applying the same framework, the same kind of NIC framework to it. And so we're conducting PDSA cycles, or plan, do, study, act, and filling out and reflecting. And we've got multiple cycles planned throughout the 2-year grant in order to test out our initial strategy of testing out different open platforms like Open Canvas was hurried a little bit because of the demise of Trellis, which was very unexpected. We'd been planning to try Trellis, Open Canvas, and a few others, so we needed to switch more quickly. So we are using the Open Canvas with multiple groups and then using the documentation of PDSA cycles to help us make decisions moving forward about how well things are working and where we need to make adjustments. We also have 5 university partnership partners in terms of the NIC Transform. So Auburn, Kentucky, Nebraska, Mississippi State, and Cal State Fullerton are all specifically working with local partnership teams on transformation efforts and documenting their work with PDSA cycles also as the grant. And I see David Erickson, thank you for your comment. Open Canvas is better. It does seem like it is working better than Trellis did. So even if Trellis hadn't ended, we might still be at this point of recommending Open Canvas.
Yeah, I think in a way, as you say, it just sort of forced our hand, and I don't think that was necessarily a bad thing because Trellis was not taking off the way that we had envisioned when we first adopted it. So I think it was actually a good thing. I wanted to add to John's comment about how are we going to answer those questions. I think a lot of it too is that our initial cycles are really focusing on the institutions within NIC Transform and NIC Transform itself. But I think very likely to be incorporating cycles that include members from the other RACs. So there may be particular things that we want to try out, and we may do kind of a compare and contrast among the different groups to see how they are handling a particular issue. And in that way, hopefully, we can all kind of grow together. And, you know, in that wonderful future, N years from now, we'll have this really wonderful system of learning from and with each other across all the racks. But I think developing the KGMS is sort of the first step in achieving that golden future. Are there any other questions? Any insights from people who are perhaps on Open Canvas now in their rack or in another endeavor? Any initial comments?
I can say that with the active learning math rack, we have been shifting to trying to use Open Canvas in terms of sharing course activities that involve active learning. And as a way to encourage kind of the dynamic nature, we have kind of a give one, get one. So you can only post a request and say, hey, I really would like a lesson that does something better with the mean value theorem. You can only post a request for a topic like a wish list if you also put out something that you've got. So here's my great, you know, activity I use with the chain rule. Now can someone else share what they have for the mean value theorem? And so we're trying to get some feedback or some give and take like that to help get the activities kind of populated and start the conversations.
Okay, was that an adequate wait for anything else?
Okay, so real quick, am I the only state person who's still on this call or like on this project?
Diana is retired.
Yeah, I knew that, but like we had several folks like 2016 that were still on it, and so I'm just wondering.
Jolie and I'm not sure who else is currently involved, but there have been historically a few people. And then Robin, but she's retired as well. So I think the retirement of Diana and Robin Hill from Kentucky has kind of thinned the ranks a little bit. But we appreciate
That's
you.
Okay. That's okay. Well, like we'll get the others on board.
Yes, and any help you can give us with that would be much appreciated.
Oh, I'll press on them a little bit.
Last chance, last call.
Bring it home, Gary.
Okay, so just a reminder that the webinar series will be continuing. Our next webinar will be the active learning group in about a week. The announcements are, the schedule and announcements are all on Open Canvas, so keep up to date there, please. And, or contact me if you have any other questions. A reminder again about the annual conference. You still have a little time to get signed up for that if you have not done so. Really looking at transformations as well as knowledge generation and management will be one of the foci of the conference. And otherwise, we thank you for your participation, and hope to see more of you in the coming weeks.
Thanks, Wendy and Margaret. The Nick Transform project is interesting. I don't have something to hand you, but I have a question. How does one learn how to say no?
That will have to be one of them answering that question because I do not yet know the answer to that.
Okay.
Part of saying no is sticking to, whoops, let me get something. Part of it is sticking to your aim and asking, with each new thing, is this going to advance the aims and goals that you have? And I mean, in some sense that works with the NIC, but it also can work personally where you can think about what are you trying to do and get out of life or get out of your job or something. And if something comes along, is this going to directly advance it? And does choosing to do that take the place of something else that's advancing your goal better? Maybe not, but certainly with the RAC and with the transformation efforts, we try to keep people focused on the aim. So as new initiatives come along, is this going to help move you toward any of your aims or not?
Thank you. I was just thinking about your second question and how you encourage engagement. And it's pretty hard to do that when one's over-engaged. So one has to choose what they are undertaking.
Yep, absolutely. People have to choose. And as we move forward with transformation of programs, we don't want the work of the RACs to stop because the RACs, in some sense, aren't done. They still have progress to make toward their goals. And so having a large partnership lets there be space for some people to work on different goals all at once.
So thank you. I think I'm done here.
Thanks to everyone for participating, and sorry again for the technical glitches. I've never had this happen before with Zoom, so I'm going to have to do some checking to see what was going wrong. But thanks, everyone.